how to start getting invested in two simple ways. I'm going to talk about how I got into investing, as well as what you can do if you want to put yourself on a path today to be where you want to be in the future. Because you can't get to the future with whatever you do right now unless you start taking the actions today that are going to lead you to that path. So, with that being said, if this is your first time here, what's good? It is Sam here. For those of you who are returning, it's good to freaking see you. So, I also want to talk about my options strategy that I use, and I think of this as investing, not from the traditional standpoint of investing, because it does require time, right? I have to put at least a little bit of time into trading options, even though it's not that much. I do put, several minutes into it per day, right? Monday through Friday, so it is some time into, but it's very leveraged. So it's not in that sense of investing where it's completely passive, but I don't think anything is truly completely passive, like some people would like you to believe. But before we get into that, I want to talk about what are the two ways that you can actually invest. And before we do that, I'm going to talk about how I made 50 grand. So that's using my option strategy. And I started investing in with money, which is the first option that you can use to actually invest into something. And we're talking about the second one in a second. But the first is having money. And the biggest thing about the money that it's hard to grasp until you actually start going through and doing it is that the amount of money doesn't matter at all. It's more so of the psychology of it and the consistency. Because from the mental standpoint, what somebody has to actually do to have money means that that person has to live on what they make minus what they're investing, right? So they have to live on below what they make. And for a lot of people, that's a challenging thing to do, right? Like if they make this much from a job or a skill or a business, then they spend this much. And there's not a delta or a difference between how much they spend versus how much they invest. It's just like, oh, there's extra this month. Oh, last month I actually carried a balance over on my credit card, and they flip back and forth or keep a very, 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 very small threshold of safety if something were to happen. The numbers are pretty astonishing, actually, where something around 75% of Americans don't have enough money to cover $1,000 emergency expense. Yeah, that's right. 75% of Americans don't have $1,000. And if you're in that group, then continue watching to the end. So the money piece of it does the two pieces for you, right? It changes psychology because it doesn't the dollar amount doesn't matter. It's the change that happens here that's tremendously important that we just talked about. Is you're making this much, it doesn't matter if there's $300 a week or $3,000 a day. You got to live right below that, right? And for some people, maybe that's 50%, and some people maybe it's 95% of what they make. It depends on the person's preference. But most people are right at that number. So when you want to put in money, you have to live on less than what you fucking make, and that changes the psychology, and that starts to build upon itself, so that you can actually go through and build that over time. And the dollar amount, again, doesn't matter because it happens over time. And time is the other thing you can invest. So I'm sure you've heard you can invest your time or you can invest your money. And it seems to be that a lot of people will follow what they put their money into, or pay attention to what they put their money into. Not everybody. There's a lot of stupid people out there. But they will take their money and they will put it into leisure, right? So where does their time go? Because their time is following their money. Well, they put their money into leisurely things that don't bring them more money in the future. Right? I'm thinking, how can I make more money in the future? How can I invest in something today so that I can get more of a benefit tomorrow? What can I learn today that's going to help me make better decisions in the future? And most of the time, that time is going to follow money. So that's why I mentioned the money portion of it first. Because we do have money and we have time, generally speaking, when you look at the masses, where they spend their money, their time will follow. So wherever you're going to put your effort into, think of that's where you're going to put your time. Now, think about, for example, if you were to spend $150 a month buying books that are going to teach you something, or a course, or coaching, or anything that's going to make you better, or going to free seminars, or whatever the case is. Where are you going to be, right? You're going to be a better version of who you are, and you can pick whatever those things are. Maybe it's podcasts, maybe it's YouTube videos, maybe it's learning a new skill, maybe it's stepping the fuck up in your life in areas where you know you need to step up and you're not currently stepping up, right? And as you put that money into, say, investing into books, for example, because that one's an easy one to understand, your time tends to follow that. Although most people probably don't read books, but if you put your money into that, I spend plenty of money on books so that I can get better, right? I'm going through a book or two every single week to try to learn and try to grow. And that is how people spend their money. They're going to go buy a new grill, or a new video game, or new shoes, or a new pair of pants, or this new thing, or that new thing. And that doesn't bring them value into the future. But the book that I'm investing in, I can learn from. And I could take away something. Whether it's, okay, well, that didn't work out for that person, and make sure that I'm paying attention to the issues that they had, but also, hey, wow, this path really worked for this person. What can I take from what they did and apply to myself? Right? And that's how I approach what I'm going through and doing. So, we all got those things, right? We've got our time and money to invest. And when I think about the time versus the money trade-off here, to trade something like options, which does not require a bunch of time. However, for probably around the last year or so, I've made enough money to pay $1,000 car payment for a couple minutes per day. Not even every day. Not even 5 days a week. There's some days where I just forget to pay attention to it because I know what's going on. And how I utilize options to do that is through that's where I'm investing my time, right? I'm putting time into there. So you can invest time into things and get money out. Think of labor, right? You're putting in 10 hours of work, you get 10 hours of pay. But you can also invest that into yourself in terms of building your skills by reading a book or doing something. And you can invest in those things to get back a return in terms of some type of monetary thing, or a relationship, or some type of understanding better, or a different perspective on the world. So I invest this into options trading. Now, the simplest strategy that I use for options trading is always be selling. So I'm always selling options. I'm never buying them. And the reason for that is because there is data here from CME. So this is one of the, or if not the largest derivatives exchange. I believe they're in Chicago. And back in 1997, 1998, 1999 period, they tracked options. And they wanted to understand what percentage of these options expired worthless at expiration. So an option contract, right? It's you and I have a contract. It's like, hey, bro, sell me those headphones you have, right? Next week on Friday for $20, right? And the probability of you doing that And next Friday is pretty low unless something really crazy happens in your life and you're like, oh fuck, I need 20 bucks. I'll sell these $150 pair of headphones for 20 bucks, right? So the probability is pretty low that that's going to happen. And that, how often do those pay off, right? Because that's effectively one type of option. Could be the same thing in reverse, right? Where I sell you a contract for these at $195 when I buy them for $150, right? How often is that going to pay off? How often are you going to be like, yeah, I'll give him $200 for a pair of headphones that I can go to Amazon and get for $150? That seems like an intelligent thing to do, right? How often does that happen? Well, when you look at the data, yes, this is 20 years old, but it was tracked for 3 years straight. The average is 76.5% of all options expire worthless. So, to put that into perspective, for every contract that is getting exercised, because it's into, we're not getting into the semantics of the details of things getting called when they're not in the money, and those things are exercised early, or we're not going to talk about any of that because it's trivial when you look at the macro view. Every contract that goes through to expiration in the money, on average, there is more than 3 that expire worthless. So, you hear this data, right? And you're like, what the fuck, Sam? Get to the fucking point. Well, if you know something has value to a certain person, and you know that 3 out of 4 times that it's going to expire worthless, how often do you sell that to them? Right? On average, you're going to win. You just continue doing what you're doing. Yes, there will be that 1 out of 4 times where it doesn't work out. But most of the time it works out. And that is effectively the strategy that I utilize for options, because you don't really know what's going to happen in the market on a daily basis. Strange things happen, right? It's not rational. So when you know that, and you look at the data and you see that most of the options contracts expire worthless, I'll sell you something that'll expire worthless tomorrow. Hey, I'll sell you this receipt, right? If you want this receipt, this is tracking information for an order that is sent out. The link down below for some triggered supplements if you want to grab some yourself. Perfect segue there. Support the channel, you can go grab your own product. If you want this receipt, you can hit me up on Instagram and I will sell you this for $1, right? And we can create a video about it. You can send me $1 and I will send you this receipt, right? There is $1 of value in this receipt because it's a heavy duty receipt. And it has this nice little black box here at the bottom of it, right? And you can scan that and you can do this survey. You can talk about the customer service. Like, doesn't that sound like an awesome experience? Then you get to go through and see the funnel of what UPS is actually doing for their funnel in terms of gathering more data, and you can apply that to your business. And I'll sell you this for the cheap price of $1, and that includes shipping, right? But there's not like, you have to try to, like, I just made that value up, right? And that's effectively what happens in people's minds when it comes to these options and the probability of them actually paying off. So, if you like this video, make sure you share it with somebody else who might get value out of it. Appreciate you guys.